So, who fancies a bit of War Thunder Ground Forces simulator battle? Yeah? Good. This is the CookieBaron, and well, it's simulator battle, so this is what it actually looked like when he was playing it, of course without the team lists on each side. And this is the thing that I like most about War Thunder, because this is what sets it apart from the competition. I mean, if you want tank arcade battles, there's World of Tanks, that's what it's for. But World of Tanks doesn't do this, and this is something that War Thunder does do very, very well. CookieBaron is driving the M26 Pershing, and that looks like a Soviet PT-76, so this must be, yep, Allies versus Axis. It's Japanese and Germans on one side, and Brits, Americans and Soviets on the other. And that's something that's actually very important to pay attention to when you get into a simulator battle, because in War Thunder Sim Battle, for those of you who aren't familiar with what a War Thunder simulator battle is like, there are no markers above the tanks, there are no outlines around the tanks. Friendlies or enemies. You can't even see the friendlies on the map. So, IDing your target before you fire is very, very important when you're playing simulator battles. But that is a lot easier said than done, because, well, where are the tanks? Yeah, exactly. Now, it's just as hard for the enemy as it is for you. So, map knowledge, knowing the choke points, for example, the routes that the enemy will likely take to get to the capture points, that can be key. Still not seeing anything. See that? Well, not that. He's obviously checking up, because there are two routes out of the enemy spawn up there. That's the route to the north, but the enemy can also flank along the southern map border to the east, which would put them above him, up there. And you really don't want to get caught in any crossfires, although, well, this is War Thunder. One shot can take you out. So, crossfire or no, you really, really do have to be careful. And have your head on a swivel, paying attention to everything around you. And there must be something down there, because somebody on the team just did a strafing run with a strike aircraft. He's definitely seen something to shoot at, and that is where you would expect the enemy team to be heading north from their spawn point. And it's quite surprising that CookieBaron's he's actually managed to make it all the way down here. Not necessarily without being spotted. Somebody might have caught a glimpse of him, but he's sticking to the low ground here to maximise the chances that he's going to be able to get into his favourite sniping position. Hello, is that a tank? That is some kind of tank. Is that a Jagdpanther? It's definitely something. I'm not sure what. It was indeed a Jagdpanther. Well, not anymore. The spot that he's heading for here is very, very good, because he's got his left flank more or less completely covered by the cliff face. What's surprising is that he's managed to get all the way down here without being detected or fired upon. And, well, you're going to see just how good this spot is. Was that movement? That is movement. That's a tiger. No, it's a panther. No, it is a tiger. Oh, well, it was. Anyway, see, this is what I mean. It can be very important. You know, tank recognition is a key factor when you're playing War Thunder Sim battles. And yes, there was something moving over there to the right, but that was an M18 Hellcat, so it's very important he doesn't shoot at that. Hello? Somebody down there under the bridge, or heading in the direction of the bridge. There's some fire coming in from over here again. I'm going to move up and see if he can ID it. I mean, it's going to be a bad guy. Oh, there it is. It's a panther. Yep, well, it was a panther. What's that? Kill number 3? Looking for movement. There's another one. That looks like the commander's hatch of a tiger on the other side of the brick wall. Was indeed a tiger. So that's what, 4 kills? Oh, heck, his eyes are better than mine. Look at that. That looks like the turret of a panther. Down underneath the bridge. Yep, it was a panther. That shot looked like a partial penetration, and also some fragments went down into the exterior of the hull through the top deck. Did all kinds of damage, but, well, possibly his driver got knocked out, which means the second shot. Kill number 5 already. We've barely started. 5 kills in simulator battle. And the CookieBaron is really just getting started. The M26 Pershing is a good tank, of course. Technically a medium tank, although it was considered a heavy tank when it was introduced into service. And it never really replaced the M4 Sherman, it more sort of supplemented it, and that was down to, well, I don't want to use the word politics in US Army Command, but there was a lot of resistance to the introduction of the Pershing. A lot of people just did not think it was necessary. Nothing over there. And there was a fella called oh crap, another Tiger. Snapshot. I think it hit, but it definitely didn't penetrate. Right, there he is. He's probably going to get the fire first. Armour took it. Frontally, the Pershing's armour was about equivalent to the Tiger's. But both the Tiger with its 88mm gun and the Pershing with its 90mm gun were capable of penetrating the frontal armour of each other. The Super Pershing with its extremely long-barrelled... oh, another hit, his tracks took it. But the Super Pershing with its extremely long-barrelled 90mm gun firing high-velocity armour-piercing ammunition could penetrate the armoured front of a Panther at a range of 2,600 yards. Moving up, trying to engage that Tiger. But, oh, looks like somebody else has taken him out. There's a dead Tiger on the other side of the rock. I'll pull back. The road leading up the hill to his left-hand side, that's the road up to the enemy spawn point. So he's pulling back and just making absolutely sure there's nothing over there to his right flank, which would be exposed if he was to head down here and turn up to the left. There's a Panther. Now he's going for the gun mantlet, but it looks like the gun got in the way, so that's good news. Oh, buggeration, another Panther. Right. Well, the first Panther's hosing him down with the coaxial machine gun, because well, his gun's just been knocked out by the look of it. But the second Panther could be problematic. Well, actually, no, not if he's going to drive around like that. Okay, so kill number 6. Still one Panther to deal with. Of course, the Panther's long-barrelled 75mm gun is just as capable, if it hits the right spot, penetrating the front of the Pershing. Now, the Pershing can actually penetrate the Panther's gun mantlet, but it has to hit it smack on. If there's any kind of angle, it's going to bounce. If it bounces up, that's great, but if it bounces down, that was actually very, very bad news for the Panther, because it was going to go right through the whole deck. And you'll see that on certain models of Panther, and I don't think that's one of them, oh, he's hit the gun again, at the bottom of the gun mantlet there's a sort of a curved area, designed specifically to deflect shots that have hit the gun mantlet and angled down, so that they don't do that. Did you see that? The shot hit the mantlet, and the fragments went straight down through the engine deck, and I think they've injured the driver. And he's aiming there, right through. Kill number 7. But yes, you will see certain models of the Panther, later models, did have a modified gun mantlet that eliminated that shot trap underneath the gun mantlet. That Panther, however, did not appear to be one of them. I was reading up about the 90mm gun that the Super Pershing had. Now this isn't the Super Pershing, this is the M26 E1, which was the first production model of the Pershing. But the extended barrel, the high velocity 90mm gun that the Super Pershing used, when firing tungsten tipped high velocity armour piercing ammunition, they set it up for a test fire. They had an abandoned German factory that had been overrun, where they were fitting the Super Pershing out with all the extra frontal armour, and they took the gun out for a test run. There was an old Jag Panzer IV that had been knocked out, and they set this up as if it was on a firing range. Hello, what's that? It could be a bomb impact crater. There's smoke and dust rising from... Is that... Oh, it's a whirlwind. It's just sitting there. Well, that looks like it's definitely knocked out, probably decapitated one of the crew. Yeah, that is just a bomb crater. And get the gun down and make sure that goes into the hole. Bingo. Whirlwind knocked out. So yes, they set up the Super Pershing using a knocked out Jagdpanzer IV as a target, and they fired at it from the front. I'm not sure what the range was, but I believe it was about 1,000 yards. And that shot went right through the frontal armour of the Jagdpanzer IV. It went right through the gun breech. It went right through the fighting compartment. It went right through the armoured bulkhead in the back of the fighting compartment, into the engine compartment, went right through the engine, out through the rear armour of the Jagdpanzer, and then buried itself so deep in the hill behind it that they never found the shell. Unfortunately, there was only one Super Pershing that ever actually made it into the European theatre of operations. There weren't that many Pershings either. They did see combat, but they arrived far too late to have any meaningful effect on the outcome of the war. They did see plenty of combat in Korea, however, but even then they were still fighting side by side with the Shermans because they hadn't been completely phased out by then. The Pershing was a little underpowered though. It didn't have a very powerful engine, and it did weigh quite a bit. And most of the combat that the Pershing saw in Korea involved driving up to the top of a hill and basically using the tank as a mobile artillery piece. But the Pershing was very nearly never introduced at all. And as I was saying earlier, it was down to a lot of resistance from people very high up in the US Army. In particular, one fellow called General Leslie McNair. McNair was the head of Army Ground Forces, and he did do a lot of good work, certainly leading up to and in the early stages of the Second World War. In particular, he eliminated a lot of the unnecessary expenditure on harebrained crackpot tank schemes. In a lot of other countries, Britain for example, anybody who had an idea that looked pretty good on paper would often be able to get money from the War Department to develop their idea into a tank, even if it was never practical. A lot of money got wasted on designs that were never going to go anywhere, and initially at least that was the same in the US Army until McNair took over and he put a stop to it. Under McNair, that was a Ferdinand. We never saw him, but it looked like the Ferdinand was firing from that position on the bunker up on the hill to the left, which was surprising because the CookieBaron did check whether or not there were any enemy vehicles up there before he crossed the open field, but, well, didn't check thoroughly enough, did he? Anyway, the CookieBaron does have a backup vehicle, so he's going to be able to take the M26 out again. Anyway, while he's getting that ready, back to General Leslie McNair, head of Army Ground Forces, and the development of the M26 Pershing. You see, under McNair, if a commander in the field hadn't stated that they needed a new weapon system, or that the weapon systems that they had weren't performing up to task, then no development took place. There had to be a clear and specified military tactical need for a new weapon system, like the M26 Pershing tank, before any development was going to take place. Now, this did save a lot of money, and it did concentrate resources, but what it meant was that to a certain degree the US Army was playing catch-up, because by the time you encounter a new enemy weapon system, like the Panther or the Tiger for example, and realise that what you have isn't good enough, it's a bit late to begin development of something better, because you need it now. And McNair's approach also stifled innovation. If the British had adopted McNair's approach, you would never have had the duplex drive amphibious Sherman tank, you would have never had the Churchill Crocodile flamethrower tank, you would never have had the mine clearing tanks, for example. So there were good points and bad points to the way McNair handled things. CookieBaron just checking out over by the bunker over there, which is where he took the shot that killed him earlier. It was the Ferdinand. There he is, there's the Ferdinand. He's not quite quick enough to get a shot away, but it looks like somebody's trying to drop bombs on him. Anyway, back to the story. So McNair had his policy in place, and he felt justified in refusing to put any money into the development of the M26 Pershing, although it was known at the time as the T26, because nobody in the field was asking for it. None of the armoured division commanders had expressed a need for a replacement for the Sherman. They were all quite happy with the Sherman's performance. And the Sherman did do a very, very good job in World War II. Let's not forget that the Americans were fighting a war in Europe at the end of a supply and logistics chain that was thousands of miles long. So they needed a tank that was reliable above all else. And you can say a lot of things about the Sherman, but it was a very, very reliable tank. And so with nobody asking for a replacement for the Sherman, McNair refused to fund development of the M26. Now, one of the principal advocates of the M26 Pershing was a fellow named General Jacob Devers, and he was the head of the US Army Armoured Force at the time. Unfortunately for Devers, he was subordinate to McNair, and while Devers was pressing very, very strongly for a more heavily armed and armoured tank than the M4 Sherman, he couldn't get it past McNair, and so he did something very, very naughty. He went over his head to his boss, General George C. Marshall, the United States Army Chief of Staff. Marshall was on Devers' side. Unsurprisingly, McNair didn't like that. He didn't like that one bit, but, well, George C. Marshall was the Army Chief of Staff, and if he said do it, it got done. But McNair did everything he possibly could to ensure that it got done very, very slowly. And this is the major reason for the very slow development of the M26 Pershing and why it eventually did arrive in World War II just that little bit too late to make any kind of difference. It was all down to army politics. Everybody involved thought they were in the right, of course. You know, nobody was deliberately trying to sabotage the war effort. McNair did have a point, of course, because according to US Army doctrine at the time, during World War II, tanks weren't for fighting other tanks. Of course, the Germans didn't always agree, but the doctrine was tanks were there for exploiting breakthroughs created by the infantry for getting around behind the enemy lines and causing havoc. If you had a bunch of enemy tanks that needed knocking out, you either called in the Air Force or you used tank destroyers. The whole tank destroyer doctrine, well, I could go on for hours about that, but this was another one of McNair's pet projects because McNair was an artillery officer. Let's just say it all got very emotional. Now, where did that Ferdinand go? He was down there somewhere. Nope, nothing there. Oh, there he is. He's looking this way. Back up. Whoa, that was bloody close. Oh, up ahead. Another tank moving in. Japanese, STA-1. But he's taken out the driver of the Ferdinand, punched right through the additional armour plate, bolted and riveted onto the front of the upper glacis, and knocked the driver right out. But that STA-1 looks like he's trying to sneak under this ridge and get around behind him. So he can sit here. He's still safe from the Ferdinand. There he is. Got him. Scratch one Japanese medium. 9 kills in simulator battle, and there's just that Ferdinand left. The Ferdinand, however, is about to have a very, very embarrassing problem. See this guy? It's a ZSU-37. He's had 2 of his crew knocked out. 2 of them sitting in the back there. They look like they're sleeping. They're not. They're dead. There's 1 crewman left sitting there in the front. Possibly there's a driver hidden away in there somewhere as well. I'm not entirely sure. But with 2 crew knocked out and it only has a 37mm gun, somebody's dropping bombs on the location of that Ferdinand and has set him on fire. And there he is. Oh, hello, Mr. Ferdy. Surprise! And of course he's sitting there. Well, what would you do? Would you turn around to expose the side of your tank to an M26 Pershing on the hilltop above you in order to deal with this little fella? No. Which means that the ZSU-37 is about to have the match of a lifetime. He's going to take the Ferdinand out from behind with 37mm high explosive ammunition. And there it is. Ferdy's been knocked out. And that is the last enemy ground vehicle. The Ferdinand player does have 1 additional respawn, but it's in a Ju-87 Stuka, and he is not interested whatsoever. Not with a P-47 Thunderbolt flying around on the team. He is not interested whatsoever in getting this thing airborne. So while everybody else surviving on the team sits around waiting for tanks to shoot at, the M15 gun motor carriage quickly sneaks into the cap circles and basically wins the game. So that has been the CookieBaron in the M26 Pershing in War Thunder Simulator Battle with 9 kills. Hope you enjoyed today's video, folks, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.